Hello and welcome to my channel Qubit Educational Services. In this video we are going to solve the engineering mathematics section of GATE XE paper which was set in the year 2019. Question number 1 from probability. Let x be the Poisson random variable with parameter lambda equal to 1. Then the probability that x lies between 2 and 4 and both the values inclusive equals, and we have 4 options as usual. This is a very simple question. To solve this you should know the formula. Okay, the formula that the random variable takes the value r in a Poisson probability distribution is given by e to the power minus lambda into lambda raised to r upon r factorial. Okay, so the term that is going to present in all probabilities is e to the power minus lambda, and the value of the parameter has already been given to us, that is 1. Okay, so let us take it outside the bracket, and now we need to take 3 different values of r, starting from 2, then 3 and then 4. Okay, so it is going to be 1 squared upon 2 factorial plus 1 cubed upon 3 factorial plus 1 to the power 4 upon 4 factorial. Okay, so we are substituting the values of r here and adding the probabilities. So if you compute this addition, it is going to be 17 upon 24, and keep e to the power minus 1 as it is in the denominator because the options are in that format. Okay, so 17 upon 24, option B. Question 2, a question on infinite series. For the series summation n running from 1 to infinity, x plus 1 to the power n upon n into 2 to the power n, with x ranging from minus infinity to plus infinity, which of the following statements is not correct? Okay, now we have two approaches. Either start checking each and every option, that is what I did initially here, or just look at the options and try to eliminate the incorrect ones. Okay, now if you observe these options closely and substitute x equal to 1 that is present in the option D, what you are going to get is a harmonic series, right? Because if you substitute x equal to 1 in the numerator, then you are going to get 2 raised to n in the numerator, and in the denominator you already have 2 to the power n, isn't it? So this will lead to the cancellation of 2 to the power n, and therefore you will just end up getting the harmonic series, that is the sum of reciprocals of all natural numbers, and we already know that the harmonic series is divergent. Now look at option D. Option D is saying the series converges at x equal to 1, which is incorrect because it diverges, so the incorrect option must be D. Okay, now this being 1 mark question, they want you to actually observe the options and just pick the correct one. Okay, because if you start substituting -3, -1 and so on, and maybe apply the ratio test, you will be able to eliminate 2 of the options. Okay, so it will be either A or D if you do the correct calculations. But again the question is, should we choose option A or should we choose option D? Okay, so then if you take x equal to 1, you will get the harmonic series anyways, so there itself you will conclude that the option is D. Okay, but I think all these things are unnecessary as far as the time constraint is concerned. Just go for D by observing the options. So that is question 2. Let us go to question 3 based on complex variance. Now this is one of the very rare instances where you can solve this question by using Cauchy-Riemann equations in the polar form. Suppose f of z is z bar into e to the power minus mod z squared, where z bar is the complex conjugate of z. Then it is differentiable on mod z greater than 1, mod z less than 1, mod z equal to 1, and the entire complex plane C. Okay, so what I've done is I've immediately brought in the polar form. Okay, So first let us use the standard representation, z equal to x plus iy. So z bar is going to be x minus iy and mod z squared is going to be x squared plus y squared. Then you let x to be r cos theta and y to be r sin theta, the polar equivalents. And if you separate the real and the imaginary parts, the real part is going to be r cos theta into e to the power minus r squared, because this is always real, and the imaginary part is going to be minus r sin theta into e to the power minus r squared. Okay, now let us start applying the first Cauchy-Riemann equation that we know, which is dabba u by dabba r equal to 1 upon r into dabba v by dabba theta. Now in order to do this, first let us find partial derivative of u with respect to r. Okay, u is the real part of the function f of z. Now we have to apply the product rule. Keep cos theta as it is outside the bracket, differentiate r, you will get 1, second function as it is, plus keep the first function as it is r and take the derivative of the second, okay, which is going to be e to the power minus r squared into minus 2. Okay, and now you can take e to the power minus r squared outside the bracket, which will end up in cos theta into e to the power minus r squared inside the bracket 1 minus 2r squared. Okay, so this is the first partial derivative that we want. Let us now find dabba v by dabba theta. Okay, now this is very easy. You need to go to the imaginary part and take its partial derivative with respect to theta. So it will be minus r cos theta e to the power minus r squared. Okay, and according to the Cauchy-Riemann equations, dabba u by dabba r should be equal to 1 upon r dabba v by dabba theta. So you need to first divide this partial derivative by r. Okay, that will simply take say that you don't need this r. Okay, so if you divide it by r, r will vanish. Okay, so the only term that remains is minus 1, and e to the power minus r squared and cos theta can be taken outside. Okay, now if we equate dabba u by dabba r with 1 upon r dabba v by dabba theta, then these two terms are already there in both the derivatives. So it then boils down to the equation 1 minus 2r squared equal to minus 1. If you solve it, you will get 2r squared equal to 2 or r squared equal to 1. See, now r can never be minus 1 because r is representing the modulus of the complex number. So r has to be equal to 1. Yes. Okay, now there is no need to go for the second Cauchy-Riemann equation because the options suggest that it has to be differentiable in or at some points. Okay, either greater than 1, less than 1, equal to 1, or the entire complex plane. So we have got r equal to 1, so it has to be option C. Okay, that is question 3. Let us go to question 4 now, which is based on partial differential equations. If the transformation u, which is e to the power x into v, reduces the partial differential equation dabba to u by dabba x squared minus 2 dabba u by dabba x minus dabba u by dabba t plus u equal to 9 to the equation dabba v by dabba t minus dabba 2v by dabba x squared equal to 9 into f of x, then f of x equals, and we have negative exponential function everywhere but with different coefficients, minus 1, 1, minus 2 and 2. Okay, what we do is we first start finding these partial derivatives of u in terms of e to the power x into v. Okay, first let us go to dabba u by dabba t, which is e to the power x into dabba v by dabba t. Okay, for finding dabba u by dabba x, you need to apply the product rule. So you'll get e to the power x into v plus e to the power x into dabba v by dabba x. Okay, now let us go to the first derivative, which is of the second order, dabba to u by dabba x squared. So you have to differentiate this again with respect to x. So you'll end up getting e to the power x into v plus e to the power x into vx. Now go to this, e to the power x into vx plus e to the power x into vxx. Pretty simple, right? Now substitute everything right back in the differential equation, starting with the first term, that is the second order derivative. You can take e to the power x common from all four terms. So inside the bracket you will have vxx plus 2 times vx plus v. Okay, minus 2 into What is dA by u by dA by x? It is this one, e to the power x into v plus e to the power x into vx. Again, you can take e to the power x common. Okay, so in the bracket you will have v plus dA by v by dA by x. Move on to the next one, negative dA by u by dA by t. So it is minus e to the power x into vt, right? This one, plus u, which is e to the power x into v itself, equal to 9. Okay, the constant is not going to change. Now what I have done is I have multiplied the entire differential equation by e to the power minus x, because in all four options that we have, that function is present. Okay, so this is what we get now. Multiplying the entire differential equation by e to the power minus x, this will reduce to vxx. Yes. The next thing is you need to take the terms containing vx together. Okay, so we have 2vx and minus 2vx. Okay, so vx into 2 minus 2, that is 0. Let us now go to dA by v by dA by t. So there is only one term, so negative 1. Yes. Okay, and then let us just consider the terms which contain only v. Okay, so it is 1 here with the negative 2 sign, and 1 here. Okay, so again it will be 1 minus 2 plus 1, so 0. Yes. Okay, so what do you know? So what do you know? So the result that you are going to get is vxx minus vt equal to 9 into e to the power minus x. But that's not it. Okay, you have to go back to the problem and see what the differential equation is. dA by v by dA by t is positive and dA by 2v by dA by x squared is negative. Okay, so again you are required to multiply this differential equation by minus 1, which will produce the correct LHS, and hence RHS is minus 9 e to the power minus x, and therefore f of x will be minus 1 into e to the power minus x. Had you not read it correctly, you would have ended up marking or selecting option B. Okay, but that is not what the differential equation is all about. So it is option A, minus 1 into e to the power minus x. Okay, that's question 4, a bit tricky, but ultimately we solved it. Question 5 is based on linear algebra, system of linear equations, a standard question. The value of alpha for which the system of equations given to us, and alpha is present here, okay, in the third equation's constant term, has a solution is. Okay, now what we'll do is we'll first form the augmented matrix and then determine its rank. Okay, equation 1, go to the coefficients and the constant term. 1 minus 1 minus 3 3. Yes. Second equation, y is not there, so 2 0 1 0. Third equation, x is not there, so 0, negative 2, negative 7 and alpha. Okay, now what we are required to do is we are required to make this thing 0. Okay, so that will get the first step in the reduction to row echelon form. Okay, so do the operation r2 minus 2r1, which will convert this to 0. Let's not touch r3 because it is already in the form that we want. Okay, now if we perform r2 minus 2r1 on the remaining elements of the original augmented matrix, then you will end up getting the row 0 2 7 and minus 6. Okay, now you immediately notice that for this particular augmented matrix, to have the property rank of A equal to rank of the augmented matrix AB, alpha should be equal to 6. Okay, because that is the only way these two ranks are going to be equal, because rank of the coefficient matrix is 2, isn't it? The only operation that you now need to perform is r3 plus r2. It will make these two elements zeros, isn't it? But if this doesn't become 0, it implies that the system is inconsistent, which is not what the problem wants, has a solution. Okay, so alpha must be equal to 6 so that r3 becomes minus 1 times r2. Okay, yes, so alpha will be 6. Now this is an exact answer. Although it is a numerical answer type, you have to select or type 6. Okay, that is question 5. Question 6 is based on Green's theorem, but you can also solve it as a line integral problem itself. Okay, I'm going to explain you both the methods. The value of the line integral 2 by pi into the integral of negative y cubed dx plus x cubed dy, where gamma is the unit circle oriented counterclockwise is. So another numerical answer type question. Okay, let us call the given integral as I. Okay, in usual notations, what do we have? We have u as minus y cubed and v as x cubed. Okay, now in order to find the line integral, we can make use of the Green's theorem and instead evaluate the double integral. Okay, now the integrand in the double integral is, in the Green's theorem, dabba v by dabba x minus dabba u by dabba y. Yes, okay. Now this is a standard formula. So what is dabba v by dabba x? It is 3x squared. Yes. What is dabba u by dabba y? Observe this negative sign, so it is going to be minus 3y squared. Okay, minus minus will become plus. So we now have 3 times x squared plus y squared. Okay. Yes. Now you should transform this immediately to polar coordinates. That will save a hell lot of time. Okay, so if you transform this to polar coordinates, r is going to range from 0 to 1 because it is a unit circle, and because we are completing the circle, theta will range from 0 to 2 pi. Okay, yes. So the required line integral by the Green's theorem will be 2 by pi. Let us also not forget this. Okay, yes. So the limits on r will be 0 to 1 and the limits on theta will be 0 to 2 pi. Okay, x squared plus y squared is r squared. Keep 3 as it is, and dx dy is r dr d theta, isn't it? So that additional r will come, and now this is a very simple direct integral problem. Okay, or direct integration problem. You can take this 3 outside. Okay, r cubed's integral will be r to the power 4 upon 4, so that will be 1 upon 4, and theta's and 1's integral will be theta. Okay, so it is 2 pi, and hence the answer is going to be 1 upon 4, okay, into 2 pi into 6 upon pi. If you simplify it, you are going to get 12 pi upon 4 pi, which is 3. Okay, so the answer is 3. Now this is one way of solving it. If you are not comfortable with the double integrals and the Green's theorem, what you can do is you can actually bring in the polar coordinates of the circle, polar equations. Okay, or what do you call parametric equations of the circle. Okay, so x is 1 cos theta, y is 1 sin theta, dx will be minus sin theta d theta, and dy will be cos theta d theta. Okay, so what will the integral be? 2 by pi into integral of, I guess the first term is minus y cubed dx. So minus y cubed dx, and keep d theta at the end, and next is plus 3x squared dy. Sorry, plus x cubed dy, plus x cubed dy. Okay, so what is x? Cos theta. So x cubed dy will be cos cubed theta into cos theta and again d theta. Okay, so what is this now? This is 2 by pi into the integral of sine to the power 4 theta plus cos to the power 4 theta d theta. Yes, so everything is now non-negative here because of the even powers of both the functions. Okay, now because of the properties of sine and cosine, the second integral of cos to the power 4 theta will be equal to that of the sine to the power 4 theta. Yes, so you can now say that it is 2 by pi into 2 times the first integral. Okay, yes. Secondly, what we can do is we can change the limit, we can change the upper limit from 2 pi to pi by 2 and multiply the integrand by 4. This will also produce the same result. Okay, and now you can apply the Wallis formula. Okay, so we already have 16 upon pi, 4 by pi into this 4. Yes, okay, and this is now I4 because the integrand is 4th power of sine theta. I4 is 3 upon 4 times I2, okay, n minus 1 upon n into in minus 2. You already know this, okay, and I2 is pi by 4. So if you know this formula, then you can solve this problem or this integration problem. The integral is going to be 3 by 4 into pi by 4, okay. 4 will cancel 16, pi will get cancelled, so the answer is 3. And even with the help of the Green's theorem, we had got the same answer, okay. So it depends on you what method you follow. That is question 6. Let us go to the last 1 mark question, which is based on the ordinary differential equations of higher order. Question 7. Let y1 of x and y2 of x be two linearly independent solutions of the differential equation x squared d2y by dx squared plus x dy by dx minus 4y equal to 0, positive x. If y1 of x is x squared, then limit as x tends to infinity of y2 of x is. Okay, now because it is a numerical answer type question, the limit must be finite. Okay, now you observe that this is Euler's differential equation because second derivative is accompanied by x squared and the first derivative is accompanied by x and y by a constant term. Okay, so the standard way to solve this differential equation would be changing the independent variable from x to some other variable using the substitution x equal to e to the power z. Okay, so the first term will then become d times d minus 1, second term will just remain as it is, and the third term will also remain as it is. So here d is representing the operator d by dz. Okay, if you simplify this, okay, minus d and plus d will go, so eventually we'll have d to the power 2 minus 4y equal to 0. Okay, what is the auxiliary equation now? The auxiliary equation is m squared minus 4 equal to 0. Roots are plus 2 and minus 2. So the complementary function will be c1 e to the power 2z plus c2 e to the power minus 2z. Okay, but what is e to the power z? As per our substitution, e to the power z is x, so y is going to be c1 x squared plus c2 into 1 upon x squared, and this is the function that we want. Okay, because we already have got y1 of x as x squared, which is given in the problem, isn't it? And if we now calculate the limit of this function as x tends to infinity, irrespective of the value of the arbitrary constant c2, the limit will be 0. Yes, okay, so the answer is 0. So now we have solved all 1 mark questions in this paper. Let us now start solving the 2 marks questions, starting with question number 8, which is based on the concepts of eigenvalues, eigenvectors and diagonalization. Okay, so we have 2 matrices here, matrix Q 3 2 4 2 0 2 4 2 3 and the matrix P, okay, which is the matrix where v1 v2 and v3 are linearly independent eigenvectors of the matrix Q. Okay, then the sum of the absolute values of all the elements of the matrix P inverse into Q into P is 6 10 14 22. Okay, now if you think that this is a 2 marks question, so we will be required to first find the eigenvectors, then find the inverse of P and then perform the matrix multiplication, then you are wrong. Okay, although it is a 2 marks question, they don't expect you to do the things that I just now told you. Okay, so instead of that, we are going to take the help of the concept of diagonalization. Okay, now when is a matrix diagonalizable? A matrix is diagonalizable if its eigenvectors are linearly independent. Okay, and because it is already given in the problem that the eigenvectors are linearly independent, this matrix can be diagonalized. Okay, and how do we do it? If P is the matrix of the eigenvectors which are linearly independent, P inverse QP will be D, where D is the matrix of eigenvalues of Q. Okay, so it then boils down to finding the eigenvalues of matrix Q. Okay, so we will now be finding the characteristic equation of Q by using the shortcut method. Okay, assume that lambda is one of the eigenvalues. It is a 3 by 3 matrix, so the first term will be lambda cubed minus trace of the matrix into lambda squared. So trace is the sum of the diagonal elements, so 3 plus 3 6, plus the sum of the minors of the diagonal elements times lambda. Okay, so 3's minor will be 0 minus 4 minus 4. 0's minor will be 9 minus 16, so minus 7. And 3's minor will be 0 minus 4, so negative 4, minus the determinant of Q. Okay, now I hope all of you already know how to find the determinant of any 3 by 3 matrix. Okay, so the characteristic equation becomes lambda cubed minus 6 lambda squared minus 15 lambda minus 8 equal to 0. Okay, see now the Casio calculators are not allowed, so you cannot solve this equation on the calculator, so you have to first identify one eigenvalue by observation. Okay, so what do you see here? You observe that minus 1 is a root because look at the coefficients of all odd powers of lambda, 1 and minus 15. Yes, now look at the coefficients of all even powers of lambda including the constant term, minus 6 minus 8. Okay, if we sum them up, this is going to produce minus 14 and so is this, isn't it? So this suggests that if we substitute lambda as minus 1, lambda cube will be minus 1, okay, and this will be plus 15, so this will become 14, and the others will still remain negative 14 because lambda squared is 1, isn't it? So that will then satisfy the equation. So negative 1 is a root. Okay, so if negative 1 is a root, then by the fundamental theorem of algebra, lambda plus 1 will be a factor. Okay, so you will now be dividing this particular degree 3 polynomial by lambda plus 1. If you perform the division, okay, you will end up getting this particular factor, lambda squared minus 7 lambda minus 8 as the quotient and remainder 0 as expected. Okay. So the other two eigenvalues will be given by lambda squared minus 7 lambda minus 8 equal to 0 is roots, not too difficult to identify. Okay, product minus 8, sum minus 1, so you have to split it into minus 8 lambda plus lambda. Okay, so obviously the roots will be plus 8 and minus 1. So this is a case where two eigenvalues are identical but still the matrix is diagonalizable. Right? Yes. Now the diagonal matrix, see, it doesn't matter in which way you write down these elements, okay, because ultimately we are interested in finding the sum of absolute values of the diagonal elements or all the entries, but the remaining 6 entries are 0. That's why it is a diagonal matrix. Okay, now if we incorrectly read the problem and ignore the word absolute values which they have given in the bold font, we will end up getting, or we will end up selecting the option which has 6 as the sum. Okay, 8 minus 1 minus 1, that is A, but A is not right. Okay, because the absolute values mean we are required to consider mod of minus 1 twice. Okay, so it will be 8 plus 1 plus 1, so 10. So the option is B and not A. Okay, so in this problem we have made use of the concept of eigenvalues, finding the characteristic equation quickly, identifying its roots by observation and by factorization, and then the concept of diagonalization. Okay, so that is question 8. Let us go to question 9. Question 9 is based on interpolation, although you are not required to know how to obtain a Lagrange interpolating polynomial. Okay, if p of x is ax cubed plus bx squared plus cx plus d is a polynomial obtained by Lagrange interpolation satisfying p of 0 equal to negative 8, p of 1 equal to negative 7, p of 2 equal to negative 6, and p of 4 equal to 20, then the value of a minus b plus c is. Okay. Step 1. Substitute x equal to 0 to get the value of d. Okay, d will be negative 8. Next is substituting x equal to 1. So we will get a plus b plus c minus 8 because d is minus 8 equal to minus 7 because p of 1 is minus 7. Okay, so if we now shift minus 8 to this side, we'll get a plus b plus c equal to 1. Similarly, if we substitute x as 2 and 4 respectively, we'll end up getting the equations 4a plus 2b plus c equal to 1 and 16a plus 4b plus c equal to 7. Again, we are making use of d as negative 8. Okay, so let us call the other three equations by 1, 2, 3, and now we focus on what we want and what we have. Okay, and how can we quickly solve the equations. Okay, we want a minus b plus c. So a minus b plus c is a plus b plus c minus 2b. But do we already know what a plus b plus c is? Yes, we know it. Okay, it is 1. So the only value that we now need is b. So it is not necessary to find the values of a and c. Okay, yes. Now to get the value of b quickly, what I did is I subtracted equation 1 from equation 2. Okay, so 4a minus a 3a, 2b minus b b, and c minus c 0, so 3a plus b equal to 0. Then I went to equation 3 and I subtracted equation 1 from equation 3. Okay, so 15a plus 3b, again c will go, so we'll end up getting 5a plus 3b equal to 2. Okay, so we can now solve these two equations simultaneously to get the value of b as negative 3. I mean, although value of finding the value of a is not necessary, I have done it here. Okay, so a minus b plus c's value is 1 minus 2b, so it is going to be 1 minus 2 into minus 3, so it is going to be 1 plus 6 or 7, option D. Okay, see, now this is a 2 marks question, but according to me it is a very simple one. Okay, yes. Now let us go to question 10 from differential calculus of multivariable functions, specifically extreme values. The number of critical points of the function f, which is a polynomial in x and y, x cubed plus 3xy squared minus 15x minus 12y, at which there is neither maximum nor minimum. Okay, so we are expected to find the saddle points. We begin by first finding partial derivatives of f with respect to x and y, okay, and equating them to 0. That is the first derivative test. Okay, da by f by da by x, 3x squared plus 3y squared minus 15. Okay, now let us go to da by f by da by y, 0 plus 6xy plus 0 minus 12 equal to 0. Okay, now simplifying da by f by da by x equal to 0 and da by f by da by y equal to 0 produces x squared plus y squared equal to 5 and xy equal to 2. So this is now a problem of finding the points of intersection of the circle x squared plus y squared equal to 5 and the rectangular hyperbola xy equal to 2 in the xy plane, and it's not very difficult to do it. Okay, you can observe that x squared plus y squared equal to 5 and xy equal to 2 has 4 points of intersection. Okay, with the other curve 1 2 minus 1 minus 2 minus 2 minus 1 and 2 1. Okay, now we need to determine which one of them are saddle points and which one of them are not. To do that, let us go to second derivatives, right? So we'll find da by 2f by da by x squared, which is 6x. Let us call it r. Okay, let us go to da by f by da by y and find da by 2f by da by y squared, which will be 6x. Let us call it t. Now the mixed partial derivative. So let us go to this and find its derivative with respect to y and call it s. Okay, so this is 6y. So what is the Hessian now? Hessian is going to be rt minus s squared okay, which is r into t, so 36x squared minus s squared, s is 6y, so 36x squared minus 36y squared. Okay, now when do we have a saddle point? We have a saddle point when rt minus s squared is negative. Okay, now because we have x squared and y squared, the signs of xy aren't really going to play any role. Okay, so if you substitute x squared and y squared at appropriate locations, you will find that out of the 4 points, two of them give you will find that out of 4 points, 2 produce a positive Hessian and 2 produce a negative Hessian. So clearly those will produce negative Hessian where absolute value of x is less than the absolute value of y. Okay, so you are subtracting essentially a larger number from a smaller one, so negative Hessian. So there are 2 such points. Which ones? 1, 2 and minus 1, minus 2. Okay, so these are the 2 points where the Hessian is negative. So these are the saddle points. So number of critical points is 2. Okay, yes. Now quite often a confusing situation arises where students don't exactly know what procedure to follow if they are to solve dab f by dab x equal to 0 and dab f by dab y equal to 0. So my suggestion would be you try to identify the curves that these equations represent. Okay, like this, here we have circle and rectangular hyperbola, and try to prepare a sketch. Okay, the points of intersection will be the critical points. Okay, all right, so that was question 10. Now let us go to the last question, which is based on complex variables. Okay, question 11. Now this is a bit unusual question because although it is based on residue theorem, it actually uses a different theorem. I mean, if you use it, then the answer comes fairly quickly. Okay, so let I be 10 to the power 5 into square root of minus 1 upon 2 pi into the integral of 1 over z minus 4 into z to the power 7 minus 1. Okay, along gamma. So gamma is the closed curve, mod z equal to 2, oriented counterclockwise. Then the value of I rounded off to 1 decimal places. A numerical answer type question, so no hints whatsoever. Okay, now if we go to the integrand, it is 1 over z minus 4 into z to the power 7 minus 1. It clearly has 8 poles. Okay, 1 corresponding to z minus 4 and the remaining 7 corresponding to z to the power 7 minus 1. Okay, gamma is the curve mod z equal to 2. Okay, I've shown it in the red color here. Now the inner circle that you see is the unit circle. Okay, so all the poles of this function corresponding to z to the power 7 minus 1 equal to 0, they will lie on this particular circle, including this. Okay, 1 comma 0. So z equal to 4 lies outside and the remaining 7 lie inside. Okay, so if we were to apply the residue theorem and find the value of the integral, that will require us a lot of time, isn't it? Finding the residue at all the 7 poles and then adding them up, multiplying the answer by 10 to the power 5 times I, dividing it by 2 pi, and then again multiplying it by 2 pi. That's what the residue theorem asks us to do. Okay, so it is very inconvenient to apply the residue theorem for poles inside gamma. Fortunately, there exists a theorem which allows us to make use of the poles which lie outside gamma, and because there is only one pole here, 4 comma 0, corresponding to the complex number 4 plus 0i, our job is done. Okay, so that theorem is known as inside outside theorem, meaning the line integral along any closed curve gamma can be found out by finding the residues at the poles inside the function, inside the curve as well as outside the curve. Okay, now let us take the help of the poles which lie outside. There is only one such pole, 4 plus 0. Okay, So the theorem says it is equal to, the line integral is equal to minus 2 pi I into the sum of the residues. There is only one such residue which will be at the pole z equal to 4, and this is much better. Instead of finding the residues at all 7 poles which are inside, we are required to do the task only once. Okay, yes. So how are we going to find the residue? It's pretty simple. Okay, the function is 1 over z minus 4 into z to the power 7 minus 1. You just multiply it by the factor z minus 4 because it is a simple pole. Cancel these two, substitute z equal to 4 there, so you'll end up getting 4 to the power 7 minus 1 in the denominator, isn't it? Now the integral already has the factor 10 to the power 5i upon 2 pi. Okay, so this integral will be 10 to the power 5i upon 2 pi into minus 2 pi I into 1 upon 4 to the power 7 minus 1. 2 pi will go, I squared will be minus 1, and it will make this sign positive as well, minus 1 into minus 1 plus 1. So the final answer is 10 to the power 5 upon 4 to the power 7 minus 1, which is 16,383. On dividing, you will get 6.104. Okay, now you may ask, when can we apply the theorem that we have used? Okay, this theorem can be applied if the numerator and the denominator of f of z, the integrand, are polynomials. Is this condition satisfied? Yes. Numerator is 1 and the denominator is z minus 4 into z to the power 7 minus 1. So numerator is a constant polynomial, denominator is a polynomial of degree 8. Okay. The second condition is the degree of the denominator should be greater than the degree of the numerator plus 1. Okay. Now numerator being a constant polynomial, its degree will be 0, plus 1 is 1, and the degree of the denominator is definitely greater than this. Okay, it is 8. Multiply z to the power 7 by z. Okay, so the inside outside theorem can be applied and the answer can be obtained fairly quickly. Okay, now one last thing, if we are applying the residue theorem for poles lying inside gamma, then this negative sign doesn't come. It is only 2 pi I into sum of the residues. But if we are applying the residue theorem for poles outside gamma, then it is there. Okay, so you have to take the negative sign, rest is same. Okay, so this answer is 6.104, and that completes our discussion on GATE XE 2019. Thank you.